I think that the expectations were really unknown. The counties were asking for more than $8 billion. Obviously, the settlement doesn't come close to that. However, if you try to extrapolate this out over an entire country, it appears to be much more than these companies would be capable of paying every county in America.
Well, it might be more than they're capable of paying, but it's also, let's see, it's 1/32 of what the counties wanted. Now, explain where either of these figures may have some grounding in economic reality. Is $8 billion appropriate given the damage this has done, or is a $250 million?
Certainly the plaintiffs presented evidence during the run-up to the trial that to abate this crisis going forward for a number of years would cost them in that range, $7.2 billion to be precise, and then they asked for another billion in damages. Obviously, in a settlement, you avoid the risk involved of getting nothing on either side. You avoid the costs of litigation. You avoid information that might come out during the trial, and so you're going to settle for a much lower number. The damages overall probably were in that neighborhood for the plaintiffs.
Ildiko, what does this settlement price say to you and suggest about the exposure companies like Teva will have to the opioid epidemic?
So I think at this point, extrapolation remains extraordinarily difficult. You know, what you have to keep in mind is that the first case is going to have a higher value for the very simple reason that it's the first case. And there are risks to both sides of going to trial. But the likelihood of scheduling, 2,300 cases for trial would take, hundreds of years. And so the value of the later cases, the cases that are further down the pike, if you will, that haven't even begun to be scheduled is necessarily going to be lower. So the extrapolation is sort of less obvious than we think it is. You can't just sort of multiply these numbers, by 2,300 cases or whatever. I think there's a real legitimate value here for these cases. And this settlement today provides another data point in trying to figure out what that exposure is going to look like.
So what you're basically saying is the companies could kind of say, look, we could drag this out, or, we could, or it could be dragged out for years, and that might give them some leverage to settle for a much lower number than the counties would like. What does Teva think it should be paying here for its role in the opioid epidemic?
So look, I think all of the drug manufacturers are in a position where they sold, a variety of different, both brand and generic opioids over a relevant period of time. But they're different. They're not a monolith. So Teva is going to be differently situated from J&J, who's differently situated from Allergan. So I think we have to be a little bit careful in terms of trying to put them all under one umbrella, if you will, particularly when you try to compare them to like a Purdue Pharmaceuticals, for example. I think the facts are really important, and we really have yet to see the facts in these cases because other than J&J in Oklahoma, we haven't had a case go to trial yet. Right. So I think that companies like Teva and Allergan and others, if they eventually go to trial before a settlement, are going to have a story to tell. And I think at the end of the day, these companies want to now be part of the solution. I don't think any of them anticipated, the opioid epidemic becoming what it unfortunately became, a national tragedy. I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And I think these companies are willing to pay to make right, some of those issues.